having more filters for users to play around with can drive more usage and time spent on TikTok. I think there's also a goal in sort of helping to attract and retain creators, which are core to TikTok's business, really by giving them the freedom to create their own effects and their own filters.
Hey gang, it's Thursday, September 23rd. Jasmine and listeners, welcome to the Behind the Numbers Daily, an eMarketer podcast made possible by VTEX. I'm Marcus, and today I'm joined by our senior analyst covering global trends. It's Jasmine Emberg.
Hey Marcus, hey everyone.
Hey Jasmine, thanks for hanging out. Today's fact: the first president born a US citizen wasn't elected until 1837. So though one of the few absolute requirements of anyone running for president of the US is that he or she be a natural-born citizen, none of the first 7 presidents would have qualified by this rule. It wasn't until Martin Van Buren, born into the newly created country of the US in 1782 and elected president in 1837, that we had a natural-born president. Interestingly enough, he was also the first president for whom English was not his first language, since he was Dutch. Jasmine, I think as soon as I read that, I thought to myself, I think I need to run for president. What do you think?
I'd vote for you.
Would you?
Yeah, I would. No question.
Wow. I have zero platform. I have nothing to run on, but I feel like everyone should get free. I feel like if I said everyone gets free peanut butter, like a free delivery of peanut butter once a month, like a free subscription box of peanut butter, I feel like I've already won.
See, I knew my instinct to vote for you was correct.
Yeah, see, there we go. Didn't even have any campaign, and I already won. There we go. All right. Anyway, to less important matters, where social media companies are taking augmented reality next. Okay. Over half of folks say the COVID-19 pandemic has made augmented reality experiences, AR, for the purposes of the rest of this episode, more important to them than they have been before. So a lot of them saying it's more important. 3/4 expect their use of AR to increase over the next 5 years. That's according to a new 15,000-person survey from Snapchat's parent company, and Deloitte Digital, that looked at how quarantine conditions have supercharged adoption of AR among brands and consumers. Managing director at Deloitte Digital, Alan Cook, thinks this has led to a broad perception shift in how brands view AR. Whereas many previously saw it as a novelty add-on to a campaign, they are now starting to see it as a legitimate marketing tool that can drive business results. Jasmine, that survey also found that 2/3 of folks say they use AR to have fun. So in your opinion, where is social networking augmented reality on the gimmick to utility scale, with each of those being at polar opposite ends?
So I think we're somewhere in the middle. I do believe that we are heading toward a future where AR will be more of a need to have rather than a nice to have, particularly in the e-commerce landscape. And I think it can become a major utility for brands, especially when they're trying to replicate some of the in-store experience that consumers say they miss, like testing and trying on items before buying. There is still a long road ahead. I mean, AR, the adoption rate has grown, but it still isn't widely adopted by consumers across the board. And there's going to be a learning curve to get people to use the technology. And the experiences also aren't perfect, even though they are improving all the time.
Yeah, you mentioned AR adoption. We have some augmented social network reality users, so using AR in the social network world. And we say nearly 50 million, to be honest. So 49, 50 million this year. That is growing to 53 next year, 57 the year after. But as a share of, as a share of social network users, 23%. As a share of internet users, 17%. And the share ticking up by 1 or 2 points. So it's not growing the most. Is anything need to happen, in your opinion, Jasmine, for that to spike? Is there a kind of a similar to, I guess, the kind of a Pokemon Go moment that we saw when we kind of dragged AR into the mass market and really explained to people what this technology can do?
Well, I think one thing is, expanding it to more industries. I think it's already taken off in beauty and fashion, but that really is sort of the low hanging fruit for AR. And I think it's a lot about education as well, where social media users, particularly young social media users who use platforms like Snapchat, are far more well versed in using these AR tools, but that doesn't necessarily translate to the population as a whole.
Yeah, you mentioned beauty and fashion. So our insider intelligence analyst, Daniel Konstantinovich, noted that Snap has hired former Facebook executive Konstantinos Papamiltiadis as its new VP of Platform Partnerships to lead the platform's push into augmented reality. According to Bloomberg, Daniel writes that Snapchat has made its name in AR, emerging as a popular platform for beauty and fashion marketers during the pandemic, allowing users to virtually try on cosmetics and clothes using its AR filters. So what does Snapchat's push into AR, as he kind of proposes, beyond fashion and beauty look like? Is there a kind of a natural next step?
So I look at Snapchat's push into AR largely about securing its stake in the social commerce landscape. Snapchat is playing catch up to Facebook and Instagram, and now with TikTok venturing into AR as well, it knows it needs to evolve its tools. And again, it needs to get more industries involved. I think we can expect to see Snap to start going after, or to continue going after, companies that offer experiences like their partnership with Disney, or in the media and entertainment industries as it's building out these AR tools.
You mentioned commerce. One of the stats, Patrick Kolb of Adweek, noting one of the stats from that survey from Deloitte Digital and Snap, said, aside from communication with Snapchat filters, the three biggest contexts in which consumers used AR was gaming, 55%, media and entertainment, 52%, shopping, 41%. So it is behind those at the moment, but could gain some users as we move forward. Patrick Kolb also noting that the survey claims brands that offer AR experiences for products seeing a 94% higher conversion rate than those that don't, and consumers say they are 40% more likely to consider a product featuring an AR ad. In terms of sticking with social players, TikTok, they announced they're launching an AR development tool for users called Effect Studio. No, it's TechCrunch. Users can create and publish their own AR effects like they can on Snapchat's Lens Studio or Facebook's Spark AR Studio. Jasmine, what do you think of TikTok launching its own AR development tool, Studio Effect?
So I think there's several things at play here. And I think the biggest thing, which you just started to mention, is that it brings TikTok up to par with Facebook and with Snapchat, which are, of course, its biggest competitors. But if you unpack that a little bit, I think, there is an engagement goal here. Having more filters for users to play around with can drive more usage and time spent on TikTok. I think there's also a goal in sort of helping to attract and retain creators, which are core to TikTok's business, really by giving them the freedom to create their own effects and their own filters. And I think the same can go for brands. If I remember correctly, this is still in testing phase, but once it's launched more broadly and brands have the opportunity to create their own effects, that could also drive more brand usage and sort of quote unquote more traditional marketing efforts outside of creators on the platform as well.
So insider intelligence analyst Nina Getson was noting that AR effects are already hugely popular on TikTok, as some, like the long face, 33 million videos at the time of her writing, and also time warp scan, 15 million at the time of her writing an article. Time warp scan filters have spawned their own challenges and trends as well. So AR already popular, but now there's going to be a Studio Effect, their development tool, as Jasmine said, is being tested at the minute, so not rolled out to everybody. Jasmine, Ray-Ban and Facebook just started selling a brand new $300 pair of smart glasses called Ray-Ban Stories that we talked about last week on the Weekly Listen. These glasses take photos and videos, and you use them to make calls and listen to music. Snapchat's latest version of smart AR glasses, I thought with the Spectacles 3, you reminded me actually it's the 4, which got rolled out to a few creators as opposed to the public more broadly. Do we think glasses are how folks are going to want to interact with AR anytime soon? Clearly these companies think it's going to be the future, but any kind of short-term take-up?
I'm curious to hear what you think too, Marcus, but I would say no, not in the near term. I mean, it requires buying another device, which one means it's less convenient to carry around, and it's also more expensive. You know, you just said the Ray-Ban and Facebook glasses are $300. That's not something that's going to be able to go mainstream anytime soon.
Yeah, so in my opinion, they're going to be used for very niche purposes. You have to give me a reason to put these on my face. I put glasses on my face at the minute so I can see. And even though these things are going to be prescription, they're still, by putting these on your face, you're still making people feel a little bit uncertain. Are you recording me? The Ray-Ban glasses making people feel uncomfortable once they found out that they were a recording device. But say, for example, you're a retailer and maybe you're handing out glasses. So when people come into their stores, obviously you have to be cleaning them properly, kind of like Warby Parker's been doing, cleaning every single pair once someone's tried it on. But putting on a pair of these glasses, walking around the store and having some kind of augmented reality experience, or somehow the glasses augmenting your shopping experience in some way. I was saying about a pair of glasses where maybe I'm going to put them on and go on a hike, and maybe for like 5-10 minutes it can do something. Or maybe gaming as well seems to be a very unique purpose, or training as well, training of different jobs and letting people wear these glasses. But I think you have to give me a reason, and right now there isn't one for me to just put these on my face for a maybe moment.
You know what you just reminded me of? And I wonder if they still have these. Do you remember IMAX movies?
Yes. Where
you had those 3D, were they 3D glasses?
Yeah. Yep.
I wonder if those still exist. And I feel like that could be something similar. But then also considering the fact that we're still in the middle of a pandemic, I think there's probably a lot of sort of health and safety concerns that people might have with sharing augmented reality glasses with other people in a store or in a movie theater.
There's a great point. Unless maybe you buy your own pair and then maybe you have different companies, different retailers add their own experiences on top of using their API or whatever, on top of the glasses, so that you could use those glasses in select stores that had created some kind of experience. Do you remember, okay, where are we at here? Are you old school with the red and the blue 3D glasses, or are you kind of more new school with the black version? Remember the old school ones that had one red lens and one blue?
I'm old school for sure. I didn't even know they had the black ones.
I knew it.
I think that's probably the last time I've used 3D glasses when they were red or blue.
I know. When they handed me a black pair, I threw it back at them and said, "This is a sham."
Oh, no, that's not right. They have to be red and blue.
There we go. Thank you. That's what I told them. Finally, Jasmine, for the start of the 2021 NFL season a few weeks ago, the Carolina Panthers hosted the New York Jets because the Jets were playing. It was an okay game. That's about as good as it can get for Jets people. They lost, clearly. But the highlight seemed to be a giant virtual panther leaping around Carolina's Bank of America Stadium. The panther could be seen on TV, not in person through AR, from what I understand. But the team called it their mixed reality panther. So on TV, you could see all of a sudden this, right before the game started, this giant panther kind of leaps over the edge of the side of the stadium into the middle, starts kind of roaring, jumps up onto the kind of jumbotron, pretends to rip a imaginary or a virtual Jets flag up in its mouth, and then jumps all around and then leaves. So that's what happens. Jaden Peters of The Verge was noting that this came closer to an augmented reality applied on a really big scale, or what he called a CGI creature, as opposed to anything kind of mixed reality. And nevertheless, it quickly amassed nearly 6 million views on Twitter. And so it got me thinking, Jasmine, that there are 32 NFL teams. Over half have very obvious creatures like a panther that would make a hell of an impact if a giant augmented version of them was running or flying around the stadium. So, for example, you have the Philadelphia Eagles. You can imagine an eagle flying around, the Detroit Lions, or the New York Giants, plenty of others as well, Falcons, Cardinals, etc., etc. You've got tens of thousands of attendees who could potentially hold up their phones and see these huge digital creatures run around the stadium. You could mix that with different brands, and it could make for a very compelling and engaging marketing opportunity soon, I guess. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think in my personal opinion here is that I wasn't really a fan, but that's also because I'm not a Panthers fan. So I think that probably kind of swayed me a little bit. But broadly speaking, I do think that the immersivity and the interactivity of something like this can give it a lot of potential in advertising. And then there's the entertainment factor, and we've seen how important that has become within the marketing and advertising landscape. So yes, I can see a world in which this could have potential within advertising.
Yeah, in terms of impact, recall, memorability,
For sure.
Everyone having that shared experience. And to your point, if it's your team as well that is you're engaging with, much more likely to care / be excited about what's going on. That's what we've got time for the first half. Time now for the halftime report. Jasmine, a couple of takeaways from you from the first half?
So what I'm most excited about within AR is its potential within commerce. We're seeing a lot of big moves in this space coming from all of the different social platforms. And I do think we'll see a lot more development going forward and helping that drive sales from the social platforms.
Time now for In Other News, but first a quick word from our sponsor, VTEX. Everyone is talking about digital transformation, but what does it mean in real life? Digital Insider is a new podcast series about the digitalization of retail, where business leaders, academics, and thinkers discuss how businesses are transforming and give their perspectives, practical advice, thought process, and lessons learned. Go to digitalinsider.com to learn more, or listen to it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, folks, we are back today in other news. Folks want more authentic social commerce experiences. LinkedIn is shutting down its stories feature, and Twitter launches super follows. Story 1. Brooke Ramsey of Facebook writes in Ad Age that over half of online brand discovery now happens in social feeds. According to Hootsuite, she notes that we've gone from going shopping to an always shopping mindset. And over half of folks are getting their ideas from celebrities and creators about what to shop for. But a new report from visual content engine Stackler notes that 9 out of 10 folks want more authentic social commerce experiences. They saw consumer-created content as the most authentic, according to this new report, over brand and influencer content by quite a lot. Consumer content versus brand and influencer content by quite a lot. The research suggested that most people expect to see photos and videos posted by real customers. That's what they're expecting to see from brands, retailers. Jasmine, what does authentic social commerce actually mean, actually look like in your opinion?
So I think we've seen consistently over the years that recommendations from friends and acquaintances, whether it's in social commerce, e-commerce, or in-store commerce, really has the most influence over what people buy. So the findings from the study that show that content from real customers is what buyers want to see more of on social media really makes sense to me. And the plus side of this for marketers is that user-generated content is comparatively cheap and easy to produce, which is also why a lot of brands started incorporating it into their marketing strategies during the pandemic.
We estimate that US social commerce sales will double between now and 2025 to nearly $80 billion. Story 2, LinkedIn is shutting down its stories feature by the end of September, just a year and a half after it launched in February 2020 in internal testing. LinkedIn said part of the reason was because users just didn't want disappearing video. In July, Twitter also axed its stories-like feature called Fleets. Jasmine, your takeaway from LinkedIn shutting down stories?
So I'm going to respond to a line in that article. And my response is that just because LinkedIn and Twitter shut down their stories feature doesn't mean that there's going to be a pullback in stories across social media. It really just means that the feature wasn't right for their audiences and for their value propositions. But we are seeing stories evolve in other platforms as the way that we're consuming video content changes. And a really good example is Instagram just announcing that users will be able to create reels by slicing a selection of their stories together. And I think we'll see a lot more of this evolution within stories going forward.
Yeah, great point. 65 million Americans using LinkedIn today. The professional social network will add 2 million new users each of the next few years. That's not quite enough to really move the needle in terms of its share of the population. Currently on 25%, maybe gets to 26, 27 in 4 years' time. So they're going to need something to keep that audience growing. Story 3. At the start of the month, Twitter launched super follows on Apple iPhones. So a select group of users can now charge for special tweets. Super follows users can charge $3, $5, or $10 a month and can earn up to 97% of subscription revenue after third-party fees. To be eligible, folks need to have at least 10,000 followers, be at least 18 years old, have tweeted 25 times in the last 30 days or month, and be in the US, notes Kate Sanchez of The Verge. Jasmine, what are you expecting the reception of super follows to be exactly?
So I'm actually really optimistic about this feature for Twitter. I do certainly think there's a market for it because it matches both the type of content on the platform and Twitter's user base. I can definitely see some of the most engaged users paying to see more or exclusive content from celebrities or from journalists or other power users, as they would with any other news or entertainment subscription.
That is all we have time for. Jasmine, thank you so much for hanging out.
Thank you, Marcus.
Of course, thank you to Victoria. She edits the show. Thanks to everyone listening. We'll see you guys tomorrow for the Behind the Numbers Weekly Listen, an eMarketer podcast made possible by VTEX. Check. Hello. This past weekend, Derrick Henry scored 51 fantasy points for my team, which is why I'm currently in love with him.